Hey guys, Tammy here, and this week I'm going to give you 7 strategies to level up your custody game, okay? These are going to be 7 key things that I think are really important overall when you're dealing with custody, and it's going to hopefully give you some leverage in your court process. Before we dive in, let me just remind you, if you're watching me on YouTube, don't forget to hit like on this video if you like the content. Also subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as new videos are released. Overall, 70% of you that are listening or watching are not subscribed to either the podcast or the YouTube channel. So please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button so that you know as new content is coming out. Let's start with the number 1 tip to level up your custody game. And the most important thing that you can do is obey your court orders, okay? So if you're into this and have been given court orders in the past and you're thinking about, filing for a modification or filing for some kind of change or whatever, you want to make sure that you're on point with the way that you're conducting yourself. And honestly, one of the fastest ways to make your judge angry is to not obey your court orders. That's the number 1 thing you want to do before you, think about filing or doing anything is go back and check your prior orders. Make sure you've complied with all them. You've completed all classes, therapy, anything that they ordered you to do. Number 2 is you want to document, right? And I talk about documentation a lot, and it's very, very important. And one of the things that documentation allows you to do is to sort of not show your cards. That's one of the reasons that we do the documentation is it's sort of like, think of it like your own secret little stash of information, right? That you're tracking all these things and you're writing them down and you're keeping track of them, but the other parent doesn't even know, right? And that's kind of how you want to have it and you want to do, because that sort of becomes, bullets in your pocket if you need them down the road. But, calling the other parent out or constantly sharing that information with your attorney or whatever isn't really productive. If you hit a point where you need to utilize that information, you'll know you could pull it out at that time. And it's just as credible whether you're telling your attorney 3 months from now that it happened 3 months ago or whether you're telling them right now that it happened right now. It's no more or less credible. Sometimes in the documentation, people will say, well, how much should I write down? And my answer to that is always, however much you need to where you could refresh your memory on what happened on this and give testimony about it if you needed to. So for some people, that might just be a couple of lines. And for some people, that might be 2 or 3 paragraphs. So you know yourself, or I hope you do. So base your documentation on what you think that you would need to be able to refresh your memory. Number 3 is never let them see you sweat. So you never want to let your co-parent know that you're upset about something. Again, particularly if you're dealing with a narcissistic or high conflict co-parent, because you're going to get more of the same. That is just how their brain operates. Sending your attorney information on something that has happened and having them contact the other attorney, and then the other attorney contacts your ex, well, that is a form of letting them see you sweat. It just went through a different process, a different, funnel of information. Instead of it coming directly from you through your behavior or your reaction and them figuring out that they upset you, it just went through the attorneys to them, and now they still know they upset you. We really want to, again, just be playing our cards a little closer to our chest, because with a high conflict co-parent, you're always going to get more of anything that they find out upsets you. So you want to just have a smile and kind of fake it till you make it, if that's what you have to do. But you do not let them see you stressed, upset, or feeling negative in any way. Number 4, never speak ill of the other parent. This is just not a good idea. It really can get you into a lot of trouble. And I think that a lot of parents do know not to necessarily blatantly speak badly about the other parent, but I'll tell you what I think they do is a lot of times they will question the children about what's happening at the other parent's house. And this really can just put your child in the middle, and it can really cause them a lot of stress when we're asking questions. And, I have a lot of people that say, well, I didn't bring it up. The child brought it up. Or I will have parents that say, well, I'm just trying to show the child that it's okay that they had fun and they enjoyed themselves at the other parent and, it was all good and oh, how awesome. And it's just not a good idea because inevitably, number one, you're probably going to at some point find out something you don't want to know. Okay. Things that we'd just rather be oblivious to. And number two, I don't want to be training the child to share information from the other world with you, because then the same thing happens in reverse. They go back to the other parent and they're sharing information on that end from your world. And so they will learn to compartmentalize things more if you just kind of allow them to do that and you don't ask about the other parent's world and you don't speak negatively about the other parent. I'm not saying, like specifically try to shut your kid down. Don't say to them, oh, don't talk to me about the other parent's world, or don't tell me anything. I don't want to know. I think that has a negative effect also. I don't want the children to feel like they can't express their feelings. I just want to try to minimize as much as possible in a subtle way that information doesn't need to be shared between the two worlds, okay? Unless, somebody's safety is in danger. That's a different issue, but that's not typically the case. So this is like everything else. There's a balance to it, and you have to kind of find that middle ground where you're not really trying to squelch them, but you're also not encouraging them to talk about the other parent's world. And you definitely don't want to be saying anything negative about the other parent's world. 5 is support the other person's role in your children's life, even if they don't deserve it. Honestly, this is a huge one for the courts. In most best interest of the children statutes in almost every state have some kind of language around being supportive of the other person's parenting is a best interest factor. And if you're not doing that, then it's viewed very negatively. And look, I know that a lot of times we feel like that other person, hasn't stepped up to the plate or is verbally and emotionally abusive or whatever the case may be. And we feel like they don't really deserve to be supported in a positive way. You've got to start to reframe this to where you recognize that you're doing this for the sake of your child. You're not doing this for the other parent. And as much as you dislike the other parent, your child wouldn't be your child if that other parent wasn't their other parent. It wouldn't be them. It would be a different human being. So we have to try to find the gratitude in that and be appreciative for that, and try to remember that, like it or not, that other parent is their parent. And so the court is going to want you to be supportive of that person, whether you feel like that person deserves it or not. And this is something that can really go against you if you don't do it. And again, I think you want to frame it as, this is something I'm doing for my child. I'm not getting along or being nice or whatever to the other parent to make life easy for them, right? I am trying to get along with them and not have conflict and deal with things so that life is easier for my child. Okay, number 6, never put your child in the middle. And I did talk about this a little bit in regards to, not speaking ill about the other parent, but not putting them in the middle can also be things like you don't want to communicate through them. I think sometimes as they get a little bit older, that becomes a little bit more tempting because it's easy, and we can kind of avoid the interaction with the other parent. And if your child is old enough to text or communicate with the other parent independently, it can sort of be the easier way out. But messaging through the children is one of the things that the court views as a big no-no. Again, I think this is something that can really create anxiety and stress in the child, because now they're caught in the middle. They're feeling the need to manage the communication with each of you, not upset each of you. What if one of you wants one thing and one of you wants another? Now your child is that middle messenger that's having to deal with it. One of the things that really puts them in the middle is communicating with them during the other parent's parenting time. Now, look, I know sometimes our kids are young and maybe we have FaceTime calls if we're going long stretches or we live far away from the child or whatever the case may be. But when they're older, and especially if you have like a regular parenting plan, like a week on, week off, or a 2-2-5-5 or something where you're seeing them very consistently. You don't live far away from them. It's not a situation where you're seeing them, 3 or 4 times during the school year and then you get more of the summers. I think those situations are a little bit different as far as the communication goes. But when we're talking about situations where you're getting regular, consistent contact with the children, most of the time communicating with them in the other parent's world is disruptive. It's disruptive to their time with the other parent, and it also can put them in the middle because now they have to make a choice of, do I talk to you? Do I not talk to you? Do I do this even if I know it's going to upset the parent that I'm with? And look, in a perfect world, I wish that we could just have free-flowing communication and it didn't matter which household the child was in and they could communicate with the other parent and no problem. I wish that's the world we lived in, but unfortunately, it's typically not. And when you are dealing with a narcissistic or high conflict person on the other side, they will definitely use every loophole that they can find to try to interfere in your parenting. So if you can draw that boundary early and just not have that communication going on back and forth when the child is at the other parent's, then you have a much better chance of, staving it off, as the process moves forward. The best thing to do is just have those boundaries as high as you need to have them to be able to not engage in conflict with the other parent. And putting the child in the middle is going to create a lot of stress for them. Don't do things to put the kid in the middle. Okay, that is number 6. Number 7, don't be rigid. Okay, be helpful. Don't be rigid. And you do want to be flexible for the benefit of the child. Here's the thing about kids. They know. They remember. My stepsons still remember that. They know that we came and got them, even though it was Mom's Week and we did all this stuff. And at the time, they didn't really think too much about it. But I think now in retrospect, they look back and they realize me and their dad were the ones that were always there and were always picking up the slack and always investing in them. And that's important to a child, especially I think as they get older and kind of recognize more the difficulties of adulting in life, right? And in trying to survive in this world. There are your 7 tips. Let me just quickly recap them for you. Obey your court orders. Document, but don't show all of your cards. Never let them see you sweat. Don't speak ill of the other parent. Don't put your child in the middle by using them for communications and things. And don't be rigid. Be helpful. Be flexible. Don't say, oh, well, it's not my night, so I'm not going to do that. Or it's not your night, so you can't see the kid or whatever. Always try to make your decisions for the benefit of the child, not for the benefit of yourself, or not just to follow the court order. I see a lot of people that are like, we're just going to follow the court order. Honestly, the court wants you to be flexible and try to work together as co-parents to the extent that you can. If you can just view it from the perspective of always making your decision for what is the best thing for the child and not the best thing that, you think will benefit you, right? The best thing that you think will benefit them. If you'd like to learn more about my coaching services, how I might be able to support you on this journey, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's a link on that page. You can book a time to speak to a member of my staff, learn more details about my services, and about how I can support you on this custody journey. I'll see you guys next time.
We'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands.